Staggering numbers in Minnesota's widespread alleged fraud case.
A federal prosecutor said yesterday that half or more of roughly $15 billion in federal funds may have been stolen. The money has supported 14 Minnesota-run programs going back to 2018.
Minnesotans and taxpayers deserve to know the truth of the fraud. The fraud is not small. It isn't isolated. The magnitude cannot be overstated. What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes. It's a staggering industrial-scale fraud. It's swamping Minnesota and calling into question everything we know about our state.
The fraud spans at least 14 programs, including housing services, addiction recovery support, and autism therapy. Investigators say the case grew out of a massive Feeding Our Future scandal, with 82 of the 92 defendants are Somali Americans.
Governor Tim Walz last week appointed a director of program integrity who's tasked with finding and preventing fraud statewide. His Republican counterparts are criticizing his administration for failure to protect Minnesotan taxpayer dollars.
Health officials moved to bar gender transition procedures for minors. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the hospitals could lose Medicare and Medicaid funding if they're not in compliance.
The department is also moving to reverse the previous administration's attempt to classify gender dysphoria as a disability. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
So-called gender-affirming care has inflicted lasting physical and psychological damage on vulnerable young people.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announces a new rule effectively banning hospitals from performing gender transition procedures on minors.
Sex-rejecting procedures are neither safe nor effective treatment for children with gender dysphoria.
Penalties include cutting Medicaid and Medicare funding for hospitals that don't comply. A second rule prohibits Medicaid money from funding these procedures. Kennedy also announces that the HHS is removing gender dysphoria from being classified as a disability.
The Biden-era amendments that designated gender dysphoria as a disability serve the commercial interest of a predatory, multi-billion-dollar industry that betrayed the original intention of those laws.
FDA Commissioner Marty McCary says that the FDA also sent a warning letter to 12 manufacturers and retailers for, quote, illegal marketing of breast binders for children for the purpose of treating gender dysphoria.
Breast binders are a Class 1 medical device with legitimate medical users, such as being used by women after breast cancer surgery. And these binders are not benign. Long-term usage has been associated with pain, compromised lung function from atelectasis collapse, and even difficulty breastfeeding later in life.
The HHS says that from 2016 to 2019, the amount of sex transition procedures performed on children tripled.
Today's revenue for sex-rejecting drugs and surgeries in 2023 were estimated in one study to exceed $4.4 billion and on track to exceed $7.8 billion by 2030.
The department says that the ban on gender transition procedures on minors will have a 60 to 90-day comment period before being finalized, and the removal of gender dysphoria from the classification of a disability will have a 30-day comment period before finalization. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thanks. Just before leaving for the holiday break, lawmakers approved a bill to address a so-called bureaucratic bottleneck that leads to a rise in energy costs.
NTD's Melina Weiskup reports on efforts in the House to cut the red tape.
The price of home electricity was up by around 7%